Hey y'all, it's Sarah. Some of you guys on the Peppermint Cactus Facebook group asked if I could show you how I did my little fake cookies. So I thought I would jump in and show you how to do those and get that kind of realistic paint look and some ideas of what to do with them once you do that part. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and start showing you guys. The first thing that I got asked is what I made them out of. I didn't use foam core, surprisingly enough. I actually used some of these Dollar Tree wood puzzles. I've got some of the Dollar Tree wood planks. I've got a couple of the Dollar Tree, these little small trays. I'm also going to be using a few other things. I'm going to be using just some popsicle sticks, and the ones I'm going to be using are these slightly larger ones that Dollar Tree carries, and then a few other things for decoration, and that's really going to be personal choice on how you want to decorate these, but I am going to show you some of my ideas. So let's go ahead and jump into this. One of the first things that you really want to do, and it sounds crazy, but these little pieces really need to be sanded down because it took me 3 layers of white chalk paint and white spray paint trying to cover up these colors, which makes me guess that the colors in these are oil-based because the color kept soaking through as I tried to paint. So all I did was, if you look, I kind of took all my little puzzle pieces, made sure that they were laid where the grain was kind of going the same direction, so I didn't scratch them up too much. And I brought in just a Dollar Tree sanding sponge and went through and sanded them down while they were still kind of in place. And just staying with the wood grain helps keep it from getting scratch marks back and forth against the grain. I then flipped them over, did the same thing on both sides, and took each one and went down the sides. And you notice that I didn't get it perfect, but I did give myself a start because I really truly had a tough time getting these things to want to take paint. And I was using chalk paint, which usually will stick to just about anything. So speaking of chalk paint, I'm going to bring in my paint palette and the color paints that I'm going to be using. And you can use any colors you want to, as long as you kind of stay in the range that I'm showing you. So in order to paint my cookies, the base coat of my cookies, I'm going to be using this Waverly chalk paint in the color Hazelnut. And you can make this pretty simple on yourself. Just painting them on this little surface. You still have to pop them out and paint the other side and get your edges. But I did find this fairly easy to paint it like this. Oh, this is so much better on the coverage. Doing it, sanding it down. I'm telling you, it took everything I had to get coverage on these the first go around. So I'm going to do a couple decent coats of coverage. If you sand them really good, you may only take 1 coat after this point. But I will say it's worth it to sand them down. So I'm going to get these all painted up and allow them to dry because we want them fairly dry before we go on to putting that icing kind of look on there, because I'm going to tell you what happens if you don't give it enough time to dry. I'm using a 3D paint or puffy paint or fabric paint or whatever you guys want to call that, whatever generation you're from. We all have had a name for that. So I'm going to be using the puffy paint in order to put my icing on here or my frosting on here. And if there is moisture still in that wood surface below, when your paint goes to dry, when your puffy paint or 3-dimensional paint goes to dry, it can make it crack underneath it. So my first batch of these, the frosting, once it dried, it had kind of a crackle look in it, which is fine with me. But just know that if you encounter that, it's because they didn't dry long enough before you put that on there. So here's pretty much where I stand. I'm going to pop my fan on these, let these dry, and we'll be back. Okay, so my cookies are mostly dry. I know I said let them dry before we do the puffy paint, but I am on time constraints doing this for you guys, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next step. So for me, the next step is going to be using some of the Waverly Wax and Antique, and you pretty much can use whatever brown color you want to, just as long as it's a shade or two darker than your base color. So with the hazelnut, this works just fine. I like that this is slightly transparent, so it makes this a little easier to do what I'm about to do and shade these edges. So I am going to allow that one last cookie to keep drying while I show you the next step. I'm going to take just a Dollar Tree makeup wedge sponge, and I am barely wanting to load this thing, so even now I've got it pretty heavily loaded. My next step is going to be, I'm going to pat that off as much as possible, so I'm just patting it down on my other sponge. And I'm going to come in here to these sides and just kind of flick across these sides, and hopefully you guys can see what that's doing. It's shading those edges a little bit so they look like they got cooked a little longer, kind of like real cookies do. And if you wanted to, if you've got a sponge that you keep for your antique color and you keep it loaded, you probably would not even have to dip in your paint. You probably could go through and do this all the way. So I'm just going to use mine. It's a larger sponge. I can do the whole side. And you can see just that little subtle shading that does all the way around those edges. And you can kind of see there. You can go in as heavy as you want to, get a little darker. Since I'm using the antique, that paint tends to be translucent and you can layer over it. So if you look at it once it dries and think, oh, that wasn't really dark enough for me, you can always layer another little layer on top of that. So we're going to do this for all of them. When you get to the stars, it's a little trickier, but thanks to the edges of these sponges, between this one or this one, you can get down on those same edges and just kind of work that along those little prongs of that star. So I'm going to continue to do this part. Okay, so I have my little edges of my cookies drying. I wanted to show you guys really quick. I don't know if you noticed these mats that I'm sitting here painting on. These things are amazing for painting. I am having such a good time with these. One, I can use them to dab my paint out, pour my paint palette. But I guess this may only be relevant to my Texas friends. But these come from H-E-B, and they're a disposable cutting board. And they have almost like this wax layer over the top of them. They're really thick and heavier. These are heavier than the plastic cutting mats from Dollar Tree. This comes in a 6-pack for $2.77. And I want you to see, this paint all right here has dried. I don't even know if you can see it. It matches really well. All of that has dried. I can come in with just a wet paper towel, a baby wipe, a dry paper towel, as a matter of fact, will do this. I would not get these two super wet and saturated because it is a laminated, it's almost like a laminated type paper surface. However, I do like that the cleanup on these is really nice and easy. And for having 6 in the pack for $2.77, this gives me a couple of them that I can move around while I'm painting. The cool thing is that nothing wants to stick to them. So even if I had painted these directly to here, they don't stick and rip up like paper does. Okay, so my next step is going to let those dry, and I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So I have these little pieces, and these things are 7 inches long. I am going to cut them in half, and here's where you get to start customizing this look. So I'm going to cut mine in half at 3.5 inches. And in order to do that, this wood is thin enough. I'm going to turn where I can be right-hand dominant here. This wood is thin enough that you can cut through it. If you score it with your blade a couple of times, and I'm going to score it so I can see it and then switch my ruler here. Front and back, if you just run that blade over it multiple times, you're going to be able to pop that completely apart and get a pretty decent edge on that. Anything beyond this point, you can kind of do as you wish. So before I pop this apart, I want to go ahead and put some paint on this. I'm just going to be using my antique. And the only reason I'm doing it this way really quick is so that I don't have to paint 2 halves. So I've just got more of my Waverly Wax and Antique. And I am barely going to cover this because this color ends up looking kind of similar to that. You could also paint it gray or any color you want to that works with yours. My original kind of smaller one showed that I did my background in the Waverly Steel Gray, and I'll show you what that looks like. But for these, I want to show you a little bit different. So it looks really cute against the gray, I think. And you can see I'm not covering it super dark. I could have added some of my clear wax to this and lightened this up a hair if I wanted to thin that out. But it's just as easy on a real wood piece to do your paint and just come in with a wet wipe, and I'm just going to grab mine and wipe some of that back if you want it slightly lighter. I really want that wood grain to show through because for me this is going to look like a little tiny chopping board. Okay, so I've done that. Now you can see where I scored it on both sides. I'm just going to wobble this thing back and forth a little bit, weaken those. And there you go. Snapped it right in half. Now I only have this one little edge to sand. And really there wasn't much splintering. So I'm just going to pop back over here, do these 2 little edges. I'm going to go ahead and move this one out of my way so I don't get any of this brown paint on there. Okay, so I have those wanting to dry. I'm going to go ahead and do one of my popsicle sticks. I'm just going to do the same thing. So for my popsicle stick, one of the things I am going to do, and this is not necessary, if you don't have one of these tools, you might could poke through it with something else. This is not necessary. It's just one little detail. You could still make this as your handle for what we're making. But I have this big thing here, and it's called a crocodile. And old school scrapbookers will recognize this. It's for setting eyelets, grommets, things like that. And it will punch beautifully through just about anything you put underneath it. And you saw I was able to do that. Guys, I have RA, so my hands sometimes are weak. And I still was able to pop right through that. The only other thing that I'm going to do really quick right here is, this side looks a little lighter than my other side, so I'm just going to add a little more stain to it. Push a little of it down in that hole that I just popped in there. So really quick, I'm just going to see how long this is, give myself an idea of where the middle is. Okay, so I've kind of gauged the middle right there. I'm just taking a pair of scissors and cutting right through that. Just like that. No big deal. Put my blade up before I cut myself. Slide these back out of the way for a moment. So maybe you'll see where we're going with this. These are going to be little chopping boards to kind of hold our cookies. So while those are drying and doing their thing, I'm going to swap back out. Put the dryer on there. And I've just got some brown 3D paint. This one's actually called Hot Chocolate. And this one is white. So I'm just going to shake these really good. And I went kind of the easy route. I kept things fairly simple. And to make this even easier, I'm going to bring this back in. And I like this because it just holds them in place for me. Now that they're dry, I don't have to worry about them drying and gluing themselves down into here. And this makes it really easy for me to go in so I'm just coming probably about 1/4 of an inch and doing this just like you would if you were doing the real thing. I'm going to go around every single one. I'm not shooting for a perfect outline on this. I think that gives it a little more of the realism with it having kind of that gooey frosting looking edge instead of having a perfect edge. I kept all of my circle designs the same. You could do them all different if you wanted to. So I'm just smoothing that towards the middle. Okay, for my squares, I went real simple with those. And you can just do pretty much anything you wanted with these. That's all the white I'm going to use. Now I'm going to come in with my hot chocolate color. Same thing, just doing my main outline, and then I'm going to try to fill into that. So before this surface gets a little too dry. On my white ones, on my circle ones, I have these little bead looking things. They came out of the glitter department years ago. I think they were from Walmart. You could do any kind of glitter you wanted to, and it looks like the white glitter looks like kind of the sugar flakes. I'm doing these little silver ones, and I'm just going to drop them on there while it's drying. This is not food, guys. These actually were some type of glitter material that was in the glitter section. I suspect that you could do it maybe with real sprinkles. I always worry about that bringing bugs, and you're good if you go in and do a clear coat over that, like a clear coat of spray paint over it if you use real sprinkles. But since I had those, they worked for me. So I'm going to come in and do... I feel like the star shape is a little wonkier for me to get even. This really does look like chocolate. If your little tube gets clogged up as you're doing this because it takes so much to spit it out, I just keep a paper clip unfolded nearby that I can kind of poke down in that guy, clean it out, and allow it to free flow again. Ooh, that definitely got the flow going. So much better. But once again, I wasn't aiming for perfection on these. I really did want them to look like homemade cookies. And my teenagers absolutely thought they were homemade cookies and were very disappointed to find out they were in fact not. Well, I guess technically they are homemade cookies, but not the kind they could eat, and they were not happy about that. So that's going to need to dry. And honestly, it didn't take as long as I thought it would for those to dry, even as thick as I put that on there. So I'm going to switch that out. I'm going to pop back over here to these guys and start showing you some ideas. And I'll use the cookies at the very last. So a couple of things that I wanted to show you. I went ahead and painted one of these little trays. You can see that I painted this one steel gray at first, and then I went and misted over it with some silver spray paint to give it almost a metallic look. You could keep it a flat gray and it would look fantastic, and as a matter of fact, I may not take that extra step to get the metallic look and just go with this flat gray color on my next one. But all this one is this color, this steel color, and then a mist of spray paint over it, and then I come back in and dulled it down a little bit by sanding it down. So that's how I did that one. I'm also going to be using this portion, and you can paint both sides if you want to, any color you want to. I actually want to be able to stain this side of it. I'm going to make this one look like a larger surface for a background, so I want to go ahead and start doing those things. And I think I am going to use this one as a background to that, so I'm just going to use my antique again, and then I'm going to lighten it quite a bit because I like this raw wood, but I don't want it to be completely raw. And I don't want it to be quite as dark as this color usually turns out. So I'm going to try to get as light on here as I can. And in order to do that, I'm going to chi a little bit. I'm going to offload as much of my sponge as I can. That's already getting some good grain looks in there. And then I'm just taking a little squirt bottle of water, and I don't want to get it on everything else. And that's all I'm doing. Now, the one thing I do want to show is there is a little red stamp with their company information on the back. I just sanded that off. It was right here, and you can barely see where it was. So, just to kind of, I can always come back in and paint my back or put a piece of cardstock over my back. This one, I am pretty sure this is about all I'm going to do with this one right here. And I have a pretty large size ornament that's going to go on my tree. Now, my tree last year, I had rolling pins and wooden spoons and all of these rustic things on it. And this year, I thought I would like to be able to add baked goods to all of those little pieces. I really did put my tree together with a lot of found items. So, guys, I was hoping that there was enough glue on here. This is the problem I ran into with the thing that the legs fell off of. This wood is still wet underneath here. It makes it very hard to get the glue to adhere because I'm jumping right in. So, if you run into that, give yourself a little more time to dry. That's why it doesn't want to do that. So, I'm going to put that to the side. But that's where we're going with that one. The next one, I'm going to be doing very similar. So all of these will kind of work together. And I'm hoping this one actually is dry enough now. So I'm going to put this little stick on here. And I'm just kind of spreading that glue underneath there. Make sure I've somewhat got it centered. Don't worry about where this connects because we're going to be putting a little bow there. You could put some greenery there. I'm going to come in. I have a little bow that I pre-made and just tied a bell to. And this is just one of the Dollar Tree Christmas bells. There's 32 in here. I just put it on a little piece of twine and tied it around my bow for a little more detail. And I'm going to pop it right in place there. Just like that. Right where that seam is. So now you can't even tell that this handle was a separate little piece, and we're going to glue it down so you're really not going to be able to tell then. Next step is to bring some cookies in. I'm bringing in one of each one of my little dry cookies here. And I'm just going to kind of lay them out and group them in a little cluster on here. I've got hot glue stuck all to my fingers. Paint stuck all to my fingers. So I'm just going to kind of glue these guys down. Squish that in place. And you can lay them out, stack them any way you want to. Because there are 9 all together on one of these, if you're doing it in 3s like this, you get 3 ornaments. Or the possibility of 3 nice size ornaments out of each little puzzle. So that's where I stand with that piece. I'm going to put that to the side. And I'm going to grab some ribbon. And I think I want to use, this is a Walmart ribbon. It was one of their harvest ribbons. I'm going to use a little bit of this. Let me get my fabric scissors here. And I'm just going to bring this around and try to kind of fit it to around this little piece. So I'm going to cut a section off. And these are all just taking this a little bit extra. All of these pieces are really lightweight. If you've got a decent sized tree, it can definitely hold up to this. This would be super cute on a tier tray. So all I'm going to do now is try to line this up on here. And I'm going to put it right about there. I'm going to come in with a little hot glue. I don't want to go too heavy with my hot glue. I'm going to kind of drag it across there real lightly. I want it to tack this in place, but I don't want it to seep through this ribbon because it's pretty thin. So I've just kind of pulled it across there. I'm going to bring it to the back, and just to make sure that I have a really kind of clean look, I'm going to fold this raw end over. I'm going to slide a little glue across it. I'm going to bring that over and tack it in place. I want to do the same thing with the other side. I just want a nice clean little edge here. Now I'm going to tack it in its place. That way there's just a nice clean look from back to front. If you wanted to give these as a gift, this would be a super cute ornament to go with those of you that put together like the cookie packages where you have the cookie mix and the spatulas and those kind of things. This would be a really, really cute thing to package it with. And I'm trying to get all the glue unstuck from my little painted fingers here. So a couple of things. I actually think that I may grab me just a little sliver of foam core to use kind of as like a pop dot. Okay, so this is all I meant. I just cut a little tiny sliver of foam core that would fit right up underneath here, just to give me a little lift and dimension on this. Even though it's already dimensional since it's wood, I just kind of wanted to lift it up in that tray just a hair more. So I'm just going to pop it under there. Pop that. Look how cute this is for an ornament. So the only thing I have to do now is add a little loop for hanging here. And I wanted to show really quick on making this bell bow. And it's a super simple process. You can see I just threaded one of those bells on here. I am taking just a piece of ribbon. You can see I've got it kind of looped around. I've got it crossed like that. I'm going to take it down that center. I'm going to try to make sure my little legs are close to the same size. So I'm taking this loop down that center, popping that in place. I'm going to come right here, use this to tie this around. I know this is probably something that is pretty self-explanatory, but I just wanted to show how I did that, where I didn't have to like glue the bell itself down and hope that it stayed. So you can kind of see where that went. Now I'm just pulling that tight. I'm going to slide my little tails down. Kind of tweak it a little here. I want everything the same direction. You could leave this extra little string down as just a decorative piece of extra ribbon, and that looks cute all on its own. Cut my little dovetails out here. I'm loving my new little fabric scissors. They are working so great for this. I do not struggle nearly as much on getting my little dovetails. So I just want to tweak this. And there you go. I am actually going to slide those to the back and glue them down. I just wanted to show you that you could completely keep that as another element. It works. The twine works really well to this, I think, as far as a rustic craft goes. But I'm just going to glue them to the back. I'll trim that little bit of extra of it off. And I wanted to show that to just show that it was easier to do it that way than it was to try to glue my bell down. So I have this ornament finished. This one finished. And I'm going to continue to make a few more of these. I'm likely going to use the back side of this one and make another one like this. And I still have one more of these trays, so I will likely make another one like this. And even just like this, it's pretty stinking cute. You could put your little string in and hang it that way. But I have a really large tree, so I can pull off really large ornaments. And I hope that helps you guys. I love these things. I think miniatures are so cute. This one really was fun for me to play with. You can always add a little greenery, a few little other things. But there you go. I hope that answers everybody's questions on how I got this look. Guys, I'm going to do some of the other little wood pieces that Dollar Tree sells. I am not a painter, but I am a very good hacker when it comes to painting and kind of giving you cheater ways to get more dimension, like doing the edges on this. Little things like that. I am by no means a professional when it comes to the painting part. I'm really not, but I do like to come up with a few tricks that makes me look like I could be an actual legit decent painter. So I'm going to be trying to do the snowman and the Santa Claus and a couple more of the Christmas wood pieces. So be looking forward to that if you're interested in seeing how those go. It's going to be really along the lines of the wooden pumpkins that I showed you, where you get some depth and dimension but without any real skill. So that is it. I hope you guys get a chance to craft. I hope this at least gave you a little ballpark idea. I think these are also really cute for those of you that are doing the trays and things that say cookies for Santa. This is a really cute way to leave them out for a while as a decorative piece up until it's time to put the real cookies out. So that's all I got for you guys. I hope to talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.